Thank you. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, the regular board meeting, October 3rd, 2023. I just want to remind folks that are calling in from virtually, we're asking you to mute your speaker or your device until or unless you're going to be presenting a public comment, for example. I will call on directors in roll call order: Directors Gracia, Director Bloomer, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega. And with that, I'm going to ask Vice President Bowman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So with that, we can move to item number 2. Assistant Secretary Baca, could you take the roll, please?
Director Gracia,
Present.
Director Bloomer,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Present.
Vice President Bowman,
Here.
and President Ortega.
Present.
All present.
Great. Item number 3 on our agenda, public comment on items not on the agenda. We'll start with the members of the public who wish to comment on something that is not on our agenda today, but within the subject matter of this agency, will be asked to keep your comments to 3 minutes. And if there's anyone on the call right now or in our boardroom that would like to speak, please identify yourself and we'll begin. Seeing none, Assistant Secretary Baca, have we received any public comments in other means?
No comments have been received so far.
Thank you. So we'll move to item number 4, public comments on items that are listed on agenda. Again, if there are members of the public, either attending virtually or in the boardroom, who would like to speak on an item that is currently on our agenda, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll move to item 5, consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar that one of our board members would like to pull for further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes.
Item C, minutes of the executive committee meeting.
All right.
I'd like to pull item B, if you could.
Okay. Anything else? All right. So we'll start with item B.
I'm calling it for discussion on who exactly attends these meetings. We don't see in the minutes any record of who attends them. And secondly, kind of curious as to why the minutes are written by the law firm rather than by the organization itself.
Okay. I don't think that, I talked to Mike about this last night, and I guess his comment to me was he's not really trying to, put minutes together. It's not, it says minutes, but they're really not minutes of what is said. He's just giving a summary of the meeting. So that's kind of why there's not an attendance record that's handed in. That's the first answer.
All right.
The second answer is BB&K has represented us and other agencies at that meeting long before I ever got involved. So they've been doing it for a long time. I know Mike has been involved with state water contractors for a very long time. Also was served as legal counsel for several of the state water contractor authorities and helped to develop some of their legal documents. So he serves us in that way, being up there, and frankly covers all the meetings. So if we're not there for a meeting, he's there, and he's reported on that to board meetings for as long as I can remember. So it's been a help to me to have them there to interpret the legal matters that come up, and also to help inform me when I'm not there for meetings. So it's just been a kind of a tradition. I mean, I could write up something similar. It just helps me out. I don't write up a report for every meeting that I attend, and that's something that they're doing just as a service to the board.
Hmm.
And-
Well,
You want me to add to that?
sure.
Historically, when I would attend those meetings, like I mentioned to Mark when we discussed it, I've really never thought of them as minutes. I've thought of them as like a report. You might wonder what the difference is. But if you were to indicate all the people who are there, there's a lot of them, or quite a few who attend in person. There are a lot of other people who attend remotely, just as a person might attend this board meeting remotely. If you added together all of those people, it might be like 40 or 50 people. So it'd be a pretty long list. That's one reason not to do it. It could be done if you're interested in that. There'd be a lot of names there you wouldn't recognize. But what used to happen was the board was always really interested in what, in the state water project issues and what was going on at those meetings, because they were making decisions that would have implications for the agency, a lot of, obviously, financial implications and so forth. And a lot of what was discussed at some of those meetings, frankly, still are discussed at these meetings in closed session, are lawsuits and other legal issues that that are important to understand in order to answer the why questions, not the how questions or what questions, but the why questions. And so, for example, if something is happening in a particular way, sometimes Mark or Steve would say, why is it being done that way? It seems like a cumbersome way to do it. Why don't we just do it more directly the other way? And often the reason is that there are legal reasons. You've got environmental issues, you've got legal relationship issues, you've got permit issues, all that kind of stuff. And there's also some of its strategy, sometimes involving lawsuits or actions before the state board. And those are items that tend to be discussed in closed session. And long ago, frankly, I would prepare a report that would get into some of those issues. And the report would appear in the agenda packet, and then the agenda packet would get posted to the website. And what we were discovering, and we got complaints about twice, was that I was putting into that report items that the opponent in litigation would pick up on. And in one occasion, they even cited to it in a brief that they wrote. And so I was cautioned twice by, the state water contractors, you got to be a lot more careful about what you put into that report, because the other side is scouring that report to get insights on what is being discussed in terms of strategy and perspective by the state water contractors. So at that point, frankly, I went to the board and said, I think we got to get rid of the report. And what the board's response was, this was a prior board, they said, look, can you just put it into a little bullet point kind of thing? You just give us a little summary of what's being discussed so that we can kind of, keep tabs on what's going on. Some of those issues probably could be discussed by this board in closed session. And when those issues come up that warrant discussion, we could do that. I try to use some discretion on how that's done and when it's done, because there's a lot on your plate already. Some of those things are tediously long, as you know, some of those litigation items, and they get into the weeds in terms of strategy and who's doing what, and who's going to testify, and what the argument's going to be, all that kind of stuff. And it's probably more than you would want. So actually, what you see in a report is kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more than that going on. And a lot of the questions that will get asked, either by Mark or Steve or even by the board, tend to be why questions rather than what questions. Why is it being done that way? Why this, why that? And sometimes, there are legal reasons, and it helps complete Mark's understanding or Steve's understanding if we all three can talk about it, and I can point out some of the answers to some of the why questions. It just helps complete the picture for them. So, but that goes beyond your original question, which is why is this report prepared by me rather than by Mark?
Well, I think it answers the question, but I think it also points out the need for, I think, more transparency in what this organization does. You used the phrase makes decisions, and that rang an alarm bell right away. There's 27 state water contractors, of which we are one. This body should not be making decisions
The
that
state water,
bind this board.
Yeah.
So I'm a little concerned now about what it's up to. And,
Right.
and I
Exactly.
just asking really for more transparency rather than less, even though I take your point about, closed session items, but
Yeah.
then it should have a closed session part of these notes perhaps. But
Maybe.
I would like to see, when it discusses, for example, subsidence of the California aqueduct,
Right.
that's an issue that's going to be very troublesome for us
Yes.
in a couple of years.
Absolutely.
And I'd like more detail when I see something like that. And I think my underlying question really goes to, let's open up what this body is doing to scrutiny of the public and to this board.
It's a corporation rather than a public entity. Not that that makes a big difference because it's all public entities that attend. They're governed by a 9-person board. They're, according to their bylaws, they've got a representative, a director who represents a certain area or else a certain subset of contractors, and it's kind of divided up by region. And the last region involves the East Branch contractors, and on the East Branch there are a lot of contractors. Coachella Valley Water District, Desert Water Agency, the Pass Agency, San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, Crestline Lake Arrowhead Water Agency, Palmdale Water District, Antelope Valley. There are so many of them that the bylaws provided that region has actually 2 directors on the board. And so there's 8 regions, but 9 directors, because the East Branch contractors have 2 directors instead of just 1. And they meet as a body just like this one does, and they talk about certain items, some of which get reported in this report, so you can see what they're doing. But the truth is that before every meeting, they get a report from legal counsel. And legal counsel is another guy at BB&K, a guy named Joe Byrne. And they talk about the lawsuits and what the strategies are and so forth. A lot of it would put you to sleep, frankly. But it has to do with proceedings before the state board on water quality objectives and the water quality control plan and the Delta. And all of those things have implications in terms of how much water is going to be released and from the Delta and available for appropriation or diversion by the contractors, which supplies the state water project, and therefore has a bearing on how much water is available to you. So those are very important items. If the endangered species issues require the state water project or the Department of Water Resources to turn off the pumping facilities in the Delta because there's a school of Delta smelt nearby, and you can't take them because if you do, it's a crime because it's an endangered species, then they've got to turn off the pumps, and of course that reduces the available water supply. That affects the quantity of water that's made available to this agency and to all the contractors. And so those kinds of, when we talk about decisions, those are some of the decisions. Some of the decisions are, will the state water contractors as an organization intervene in the lawsuit involving DWR? And they do that a lot. And it's the board of that organization that makes those decisions. Of course, when they do, that commits funding by all the contractors, including this agency. So it's a lot of those kinds of decisions that have financial impacts. And I think it's very fair to want to know more about what those are. They're not secret. They're just confidential among the contractors.
Yeah, okay. I don't know how to leave that other than to say I would seek more transparency as to
Okay.
what this body is doing. Our name is on the documents that they submit. They submitted one last Thursday to the state with our signature on it. And
Desert
I'm
Water Agency?
sure no one on this board knows what's in it except me because, I dug it out.
Is that a letter?
Yeah.
Oh.
The state issued an 6,000-page document
Yeah.
on the Bay Delta project on Thursday for public comment. And on Thursday, this body made public comments.
Yeah.
Now, when you read the detail, it wasn't that scary. It was a restatement of previous policy, which I'm sure a previous board looked at. But I'm a little bit worried about the lack of transparency here, and I'd like you to look at it.
So I get several emails each week about different letters that are going out, and they want contractors to support the position. So if you see something on there like that, I authorized it.
Mhm.
So if you want me to run that by you, I can do it on every one of the letters. But
Well, in that instance, it just took me by surprise that it was so quick.
Yeah.
A 6,000-page document can't be reviewed in a day. I'm like not 1/10 the way through it myself.
That's
But-
the reason the contractors have staff that review that. They're heavily involved, and that's one of the advantages of that organization is that we're paying dues to them to kind of do that kind of research for us. We review them in these board meetings that we have monthly, and what the positions are and what the problems are, and we get the legal briefs, and then the letters go out, and that's kind of what they lobby for the contractors as a whole. It's not always something that we want to put our name on because sometimes it's not great for DWA. It's what, the majority of the contractors want. So we wouldn't put our approval on that, but
This actually looks like a bigger issue than I thought it was when I brought it up. But I think the charge that I would make to you guys, if the directors agree, is let's get more input from this body, this nonprofit that we belong to, as to what their decision-making process is and where we fit into it.
Are these meetings open to the public?
yes.
The open sessions are.
I brought this up, I think, as part of my opening comments during our first meeting, that I wanted to see directors more involved with with this aspect of this agency's business.
And
And I'm glad that you brought it up. And I would like to see the board, the president, consider appointing a director to attend these meetings and to help us fully understand the complexities of what this board's responsibilities are. I think a lot of things are kept, on the wrong side of the dais, and this is certainly this is one of the big reasons why this agency is one of 27 and not one of 5,000, like Mission Springs and other districts in the state of California. So maybe you guys could ponder that at your executive committee, because I've always thought that, our involvement with Aqua and organizations like that is all fun and games, but this is where the real work is done, the state contractors meetings. And I think that we should pull the curtain back a little bit as well. So if, make yourself available to the president, maybe he'll assign you to the duty of.
I'm not asking for another job.
Well,
but I put it out
I
there.
think it's important because
We have other
it's-
comments related to this on the board? Do you have any additional comments? No?
They might be
All right.
I will say that the contractors tend not to have members of their own boards at the contractors' meetings. And I need to think about whether there's a legal reason for that, whether there are Brown Act implications or something, but I can do that. I hear what you're saying.
Well, my thinking is if there's a board member from one of the East Branch agencies, this board should have a better understanding of how that member is selected, who it is, what his interests are. And it sounds like, to me, Mr. McKenna would like to get to the bottom of that. And I think that it would be healthy for this board to.
One thing I should clarify, too, to make sure that you understand, when I said that they have 9 directors, that all of their directors are general managers on that nonprofit.
Right. And that there's, again, a decision made by the board and not by the general manager. So these are all things that I think the board has. The other boards went between 1960, never a change. And really, it was, they had opportunities to know the person that they appointed. I don't know how many people, very few people were ever actually elected without being appointed. And so they knew each other very well and came together, all their business was done before the meeting ever started. In the case of this board, that's not the case. And I think each director should be confident in the decisions that were made during the buildup of what brought us to the point that we are. And so if you find yourself with any interest, I would suggest you make yourself available because it's fascinating business. And I think that
I have more questions than answers.
that's
all I can
that's
tell
my
you.
point.
How would
And
you
you
like
have a
to-
right to understand.
How would you
it.
like to proceed, Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
Like I said, I'd like the staff to look at a way of providing more transparency of what this
That's
body
it.
is
You
doing
go-
or is
you-
about to do. That's as
Sure.
far as I
Go-
can
go
go
to-
with this.
Okay, thank you. Item 5C, Director Gracia.
Yes, this is an interesting development. I saw your, I don't have the minutes in front of me, maybe she could bring them up. There was a item on the executive committee meeting agenda regarding the establishment of a ad hoc committee. Would be you and the vice president and the equals at Mission Springs Water District. But the way it was worded was, I hadn't, there was, you have it there? Oh, here we are. It starts out by saying, to consider whether these positions will be paid. And then it says you announced that there was going to be this ad hoc committee, but it doesn't go into whether or not you decided to pay our appointees or your appointees to that committee. I'd like to further understand that.
Okay. I don't know that we've made that decision
Oh,
yet.
good. Okay. Yeah, well, that was, I didn't know, I know that you have the authority to appoint an ad hoc committee. I'm not sure that you had the authority as a subcommittee to make the agreement for that. And if that's, I think it would be important to do, but I think that the timing of that would have to coincide with let's just say that as the boards reconstitute themselves over the next month or two, I would be more enthused about talking about compensation at a time maybe after the first of the year. You know, I brought this item up as something I wanted to see happen, and I'm thrilled you're doing it. And I'll try not to light it on fire, but I think that it's important that one of the things that I agonized about in the idea of creating this committee was my worry about how the board would make the selection process of who would serve on those committees. And I think that, you know, I always felt that, you know, the board would have an input into that. My concern is that, you know, we're still in court with this group. They're suing us. When this agency was created in 1961, within a year, the Mission Springs Water District, at the time was Desert Hot Springs County Water District, came to this board with a subcommittee just like you just appointed and argued to be part of this agency, to be expand the agency so that it could include Mission Springs Water District. And as part of that discussion, it was covered widely in the press. So this is not some, you know, something that I know that nobody else does. Anybody that goes back and reads the old stories would understand that that was settled law. They wanted to be a part of this agency, and they wanted to maintain their autonomy as an agency in terms of continuing to be a water retailer. But it was settled then who would be the water contractor for the area. And it always bothered me that they tried to change that history in their arguments when they created this fantasy of a lawsuit that they brought against this agency. And I just want people to know that, you know, I appreciate you taking this effort to extend the olive branch. But as someone that is familiar with the actions over there and the way they have historically, and I have all the hope in the world that that might be coming to an end, but I've never heard a positive thing come from that board about this agency. Even in recent meetings, it's always a backhanded slap or a direct assault. Never anything of a positive nature. And so it's thin ice, as far as I'm concerned. I know that one of the things that I had hoped to do was to accomplish was that we would be able to move forward without the animosity that they seem to create over there. I think it comes from.
I'd like to prevent or stop from speculating what they're going to do or
Well,
what
I
they
know,
are doing. I would like to focus on the fact that we have this item of a committee that you're speaking of, an item that you actually brought
Right.
on early on and then seemed to not want to do.
No,
but
no,
we're
no,
now
no.
moving
That's-
forward on it.
That's not,
Okay, so
I want to make that clear. That's,
can we wrap this up? So
yes,
get to your
yes.
point.
So the point is that, I've believed from the time I started to fully understand what was happening over there, that the two agencies should look for ways to cooperate. And then I've kind of developed further my opinion on that. And I've written opinion pieces that were published prior to my election that I thought that these two agencies should look for ways to consolidate and become one, and eliminate the animosity and the legal maneuvering that goes on to try to, what seems to me, to create these false, so that they could literally drain the ratepayers of legal fees. There's no other reason that you would make up things out of thin air that have been.
I feel like we're getting away from your original question.
I think that, there are two directors here that were elected by a lot that had some form of agreement with looking at consolidation as a possibility. And I don't know if there's 2 votes to move that forward, or if there's 3, or maybe 1, maybe or not. But in my view, it's in your hands as president of the board whether or not that agency even continues to exist past the next election.
I don't think it's in my hands.
It is. It absolutely 100%
It's not my
is.
responsibility.
I know it's.
Can we
President?
wrap this up, please? Can we get
Well,
to the, what is the point you're trying to make? Because we've been going on for this for quite a while.
I think anyone that hears my words understands my point.
Mhm.
And there's $195 million sitting in the state treasury, ready to come to the aid of the people at Desert Hot Springs that are right now drinking water that is considered unsafe for human consumption.
We cannot continue this conversation. This is
Okay, thank you.
speculation.
It's
This
not
is-
speculation.
This is not the. We have talked about this before. We are not going to sit here and denigrate a sister agency within our territory on something that is quite honestly not the legal standard at this point, and you know that. So I'm going to cut off discussion on this, and we're
Okay.
going
Thank
to
you.
take a vote.
Thank you.
Mr. President, could I just make one comment?
Yes.
Just on a couple of the comments that Director Grasha made in our questions that he had in the beginning. I mean, you're authorized to form the ad hoc committee
Absolutely.
for our policies. Also, once the committee is formed, attendance of a committee meeting is compensable. It's not
Thank you.
It's not something that we vote on. It's automatically compensable.
Thank you for that clarification. So with that, are we going to consider these items separately, or are we going to vote on them
I'll move that we vote on them all in one motion. I move that we authorize the staff recommendation of passing all
Thank you. I'm looking
items
for a
A
second.
through F.
Thank you. So we have a first from Director Grasha, a second from Secretary Treasurer McKenna. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 6A, request board authorization to call for bids for construction of 2021-2022 replacement pipelines, Betty Cree Tract, Luring Sands Tract, Sunmore Estates, Val Vista Tract, Tract 14416, and Palm Valley Estates. Mr. Tate, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. The 2021-2022 pipeline capital improvement project includes work order 21-111 for a pipeline replacement project within Palm Springs. The budget amount for this work order is $5,670,000 to include engineering, construction, and inspection. The project will install approximately 15,800 linear feet of 8-inch ductile iron pipe and 600 linear feet of 12-inch ductile iron pipe within 6 areas of Palm Springs. The attached maps show the location of the replacement project throughout Palm Springs area. The average installation date for the pipelines to be replaced is 1951, with an average age of 72 years. The pipelines in this project have exhibited 532 leaks over the past 5 years, requiring 5,019 labor hours to repair, and water losses of approximately 8.6 million gallons, or 26.4 acre-feet. With authorization being granted today, the bid opening for the project will tentatively be held on December 7th, and the contract award scheduled for the meeting of the Board of Directors on December 19th, 2023. With material delays, work is expected to commence in July 2024, with completion in, I have the wrong date on there, December 2024. Fiscal impact, the construction estimate for the project is $4,880,000 for the contract cost. An estimated labor cost for the agency is $540,000, which includes $100,000 for agency performed inspection, for a total cost of $5,420,000. Finance Director Sands has reviewed this report. Staff recommends that the Board of Directors authorize calls for bid for the 2021-2022 pipeline replacement project. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, I'll move the recommendation.
Can we discuss it first?
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
would you
Sorry.
remove your motion so that we
Oh,
may
yeah, sure.
discuss? Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
Director Bloomer, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna, I'm sure you do.
I do. I applaud this. I think it's terrific. 5,000 man-hours of dealing with leaks. Yeah, it's overdue. Let's get on and do it.
Okay, so this, is there more than one map, or are we looking at sort of a
That's an
general?
overall map showing
That's an
all the
overall.
areas.
Mhm.
And then if you go to the subsequent pages, it'll show the streets within each area that are going to be replaced.
Okay, could we go back to the overall map, please? Thank you. So there are 6 areas altogether, right? Okay, thank you. Vice President Bowman?
I think it is overdue.
So it looks like most of, well, you've got areas 1, 2, 3, and 6 and that are west of the airport. Is that correct? Sort of in quasi-central Palm Springs. And then this other area 5 is that in the Cove? No.
That's Broadmoor.
Oh, I
That's
see
down
it.
by
Yes, I see it.
Rimrock,
Yep.
Crawford Ponds.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. I have no further questions, so we can proceed to a vote or a motion.
I move the item 6. Is it 6A or
6A, yep.
6A, staff recommendation?
Thank you. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a first from Director Grasha, a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Yes.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Right, so we can move to the next discussion item, which is 6B, request board authorization to execute quitclaim terminating easement interest within property owned by Cathedral Cove 1.0 LLC. And I guess that's you again, Mr. Tate.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. Cathedral Cove 1.0 LLC, the developer for the Cathedral Cove Center project, requested the Desert Water Agency terminate an easement within their proposed project. The agency's easement originates from a grant deed recorded in 1926 for water rights, ingress, egress, pipeline ownership, ownership of a well, and various appurtenances used to pump, store, and convey water. The easement is shown on attachment 1. The deed was originally granted to Cathedral City Water Company for the purpose of supplying and maintaining water facilities in downtown Cathedral City. The deed was acquired by the Desert Water Agency through the acquisition of the Palm Springs Water Company and Cathedral City Water Company. Agency facilities within the area to be quitclaimed have been relocated or abandoned in place as part of the project. Where new facilities are to be constructed or existing facilities retained, Cathedral Cove 1.0 LLC or City Urban Revitalization Corporation are in the process of issuing easements for those facilities. In addition, the agency will retain the 1926 easement in those locations as they have been excluded from the quitclaim. City Urban Revitalization Corporation has already issued an easement for the existing sewer and water pipelines on 4/25/23, which was presented to the board on the July 15th board meeting. To clear title to the land, a quitclaim deed will be required to vacate the easement. That's attachment 2. The City of Cathedral City has already vacated the public streets and alleys through various resolutions which were recorded with Riverside County. The fiscal impact: Cathedral Cove 1.0 LLC paid the agency $700, the standard fee for processing a quitclaim. Finance Director Sands has reviewed this report. Legal review: the legal counsel has reviewed the quitclaim. Staff recommends authorization to execute the quitclaim, terminating easement interest as depicted in the attached quitclaim. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. Director Gracia, do you have any questions for Mr. Tate?
Just a curiosity. It says we're abandoning these, and at some point in the future, is it going to come back with new easements for new construction, or how's that part of it coming to?
Yes, some of the easements have already been issued, so we're working on a pipeline plan
Okay.
for sewer and water. So they know where the new sewer and water is going to go, and we've already been issued the easement for the sewer, and then other areas to be retained.
All right.
So we have a plan. They have a water plan and a sewer plan, and we know, okay, we're going to need this 25 feet for a sewer.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bloomer?
No questions.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
No questions?
Thank you. Vice President Bowman?
None from me.
And none from me, so we can proceed to a vote, please.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Thank you. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you. I have a first from Director Bloomer, a second from Vice President Bowman. Assistant Secretary Baca?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Right, we are moving to item number 7, the General Manager's Report. Mr. Johnson, would you take us
Thank you,
there?
President Ortega and members of the board. The first item on the report is regarding a trial court's tentative decision regarding in August 6 of 2020, DWR adopted 3 bond resolutions for funding of the Delta program. And they filed a validation action. Several parties opposed this action, claiming that DWR does not have the authority and they have not yet approved a project. It went to trial, and on August 25th of 2023, the trial court distributed their ruling, and they found during this ruling that DWR lacks the authority to adopt the Delta program as a further modification. So if this ruling holds, DWR cannot issue bonds to fund planning or construction as a modification. And on September 18th of 2023, DWR submitted an objection to the tentative statement of decision. The second item listed here is regarding DWR's release of their public review draft of the California Water Plan update of 2023. And on September 20th, they released the public review of the 2023 update, beginning a 30-day comment period. This plan is required to be updated every 5 years. The updated plan provides ongoing support for the state agency's tasks with implementing the water resource portfolio, which was developed in response to Governor Newsom's executive order. The update focuses on equitable management and investments in California resource systems and includes a Chapter 7, which is entitled Strengths and Resources of California Native American Tribes, which is meant to amplify tribal voices and encourage tribal participations in water planning. DWA plans to coordinate review with CVWD and determine if any comments regionally or by the agency are appropriate, and those are due by October 19th of this year. Okay, the next item is an update on the Whitewater River Recharge Facility repair work that has been going on since tropical storm Hillary hit. What I'd like to do, I do have a video if you'd like. It's about 3 or 4 minutes long of a drone just flying over the channel. If you'd like to see that, I can.
I think we would.
Okay, I'll have Ms. Baca pull that up. And this video was taken by CVWD, flying over the channel. As you can see, they start at the 10 freeway, and they're heading in a south direction. And we are, there we go. It's a little spotty here, probably the size of the video, but as you can see at this point here, they started to reshape the channel. And what they did is they diverted the existing natural flow to the left of the channel, and then they worked reshaping the other side, and that will be the side that will convey the recharge water. That pretty much was destroyed during the storm. As you can see, they've done a lot of work in a short period of time. They had the assistance of Metropolitan brought some crews out to help. At this point here, you'll see some equipment, one of their staging areas. And then the channel will turn to the east. And this is the work that they've performed that heads towards the replenishment facilities. You can see they've covered this entire stretch. I think this is a little over a mile, almost a mile and a half of channel work. And this is heading here towards the railroad tracks. Again, I apologize for the choppiness of the video. There are the railroad tracks. They uncovered all of that area. They have then diverted the water, the existing flow, and worked this entire channel. Again, this will be the main channel that will convey the imported water. And we're heading towards the recharge basins. That's Highway 111 straight ahead. We make a turn here. Again, all of this area was worked at since the storm. They've been extremely busy. This location that we're coming upon, this is the sluice gate. If you've been on the tour, this is the area where we stop, and this is where they can divert the water to the right side, which is the concrete lined, or it can continue down this path. You see, a lot of this channel was destroyed during the storm. And you can see some of the heavy excavator still moving some and shaping the channel embankments. And that concludes the video. And so they, since the storm, they have completed 7,000 lineal feet of 1.32 miles of channel restoration between the railroad and the sleuthing gate. They've completed about 3,300 lineal feet between the railroad and the sleuthing gate. They uncovered, excavated around the sleuthing structure, and put in some riprap. And so they did start delivering water yesterday into the channel at a 50 CFS flow. They plan to increase that today to 100, and then they will do 150 starting tomorrow. They want to work it slow. They're still concerned of the silt buildup that will be transported down the channel. They want to keep that to a minimum. That's why we're moving at a kind of a slow pace. And they're still continuing to do some work on channel restoration on the north side of the facilities between intakes number 1 and 2, and also removing sediment from pond 10. Need to remove around 65,000 cubic yards. The next item on the report is Ms. Hopping, who is not here today, attended 2 hiring events in the Valley. The first was a Valley-wide employment expo that was held at Fantasy Springs Casino back on September 21st. It was fairly large. There was 90 employers and over 1,000 job seekers. And the second event was at Cal State University San Bernardino campus there in Palm Desert off of Cook. And that was held on September 28th. Both events were attended well, and Ms. Hopping was able to talk to multiple prospective applicants. All right, the next item, we just wanted to congratulate President Ortega, who was recently elected to serve on the Aqua Region 9 board for the term between January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. So congratulations, President Ortega, on that. And next item is damage that occurred to a water agency facility. You may have seen this on the news. You know, it's a slow day in the press when the big event was a sinkhole. But this happened on September 26th. There was a contractor performing some work in Indian Trail and East Palm Canyon, down by the Ace Hotel. The contractor was installing some electrical conduit. They hit our water main. It was a steel water main with a mold device. It was a directional drilling type construction. We received the call and immediately responded. Within 30 minutes, we had the main shut down and a clamp placed on a fairly large hole. The photo on the right-hand side is the hole that was created. We then had to remove about 1,000 square feet of asphalt that was undermined due to the leak. Because of the severity of that size hole, we are going to replace that stretch of pipe. It's about 15 feet of main between two valves that got hit. So what we'll be able to do is isolate that stretch by closing the valves down, and next week we will be going in and replacing that with a solid piece of pipe. To have that size of hole with the clamp is not our preferred repair. And once we have that repaired, we will then have our asphalt contractor, go in and put in the permanent asphalt over that entire area. I will state that we are looking at reimbursement from the contractor who was performing the work. The estimated amount of water lost during this leak was around 30,000 gallons. The next item is our system leak data. So the three mains that are in the blue color there, they are part of the project that was just authorized today for going to bid. So hopefully those will, as we said, we can start work, we're hoping in July of next year. Again, Avenida Carrieros, that is under contract, still waiting for material. And then we have our meetings and activities. Just wanted to highlight some of the activities. So on the September 23rd, we attended, Mark and I were up in Sacramento, attended state water contractor meetings, and we also attended the site's joint reservoir committee and authority board meeting in Maxwell. We had on the 27th, we had our recycled water plant tour with Councilmember DeHart, which I thought went very well. He's very appreciative. He asked a lot of questions, and staff, they did a great job. We had tribal mediations on the small negotiation team meetings on the 2nd. And we also, Mark and I attended our TAC meeting, tribal mediation meeting on the 2nd. And there's a list of activities that are ongoing. And with that, I would like to introduce back to General Manager Kraus. He has an item that he would like to add to the discussion here.
Thank you, Steve. I have an additional item I'd just like to update the board on, Assembly Bill 1668 and Senate Bill 606, which direct the State Water Board to adopt efficiency standards and also performance measures for commercial, industrial, and institutional water use, otherwise known as making conservation a California way of life. The regular rulemaking process for the proposed regulation is underway. Notice of the proposed rulemaking has been released and has been followed by public comment, and then what is upcoming is a public hearing scheduled for Wednesday, October 4th in Sacramento. Because this regulation stands to profoundly affect DWA and its customers, we are sending Ashley Metzger, because of her extensive knowledge and experience with the agency and this issue, to testify at the hearing on behalf of the agency and in support of Aqua's position. If there's no objection, I've also asked President Ortega to attend. He was scheduled to attend an Aqua Region 4 event in Northern California, which was at the same time as the hearing, but I believe it is important that the agency leadership represent us at this hearing to show that we are serious and that this is a serious matter for the agency.
Okay, thank you. Is that you?
Yeah.
It doesn't show up here at all.
Oh, I wondered about
But I
that.
saw your hand, so
Oh,
do you have a
okay.
question?
Just a thought that on the subject that you just raised, you know, it's a touchy subject whenever you talk about. It seems to me that we should maybe start thinking about involving maybe staff on this subject from Mission Springs, so that they maybe send someone up with you to so that they could start developing a better understanding of what we're doing over here, so that they might relate it to their board, what their responsibilities go beyond picking on board members from other agencies. This seems to me like an opportunity to do that. I know they've got a real firecracker over there in their public relations and water education. Marion, is that her name, Marion? It seems to me that that might be an opportunity to begin to involve them in some of the activities over here. Thank you.
I'll let Mrs. Metzger talk to that, because I believe we've already been making contact
Oh,
with them about
okay.
that. And that's also part of perhaps what is planned for this joint committee, ad hoc committee between the two executive teams. Mrs. Metzger, please.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. I would like to report that the general manager and one of Mission Springs board members will be attending the hearing for public testimony at the State Water Resources Control Board tomorrow. And we have coordinated with them, and we'll certainly have lots of time to discuss strategy with them leading up to the formal submission of comments on October 17th.
Thank you.
Did I hear? I might have messed up. Did she say Mission Springs board members will be attending up there? Is that what you said?
I heard general manager
Oh,
and board member,
okay.
but maybe
Good.
perhaps she can clarify.
Glad to see it. Thank you.
Could you
Yes, sir, that's correct. Their general manager and one board member will be attending.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Do you have any other questions or comments
No,
about the
thank you.
manager's report?
No, thank you very much.
How about you, Director Bloomer?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
Going back to the Whitewater, that looks like an expensive operation, and presumably Coachella Valley Water District is doing it. And are we going to get a bill from them for that? And is that included in the damage estimate you gave us before?
I know that they are looking for some grant money for that work. We do pay a percentage of maintenance work within that facility. Around 25% of the cost are the amount that we would pay, and we would see a bill that would come from CVWD due to this work.
Okay. We don't know how much? No.
At this time, we do not have a total.
All right. And you didn't mention Mission Springs facility, but I hiked through there the other day and I see huge amount of work going on the natural gas pipeline and a little bit of
Correct.
work going on the debris basin. So do we know what's scheduled for that?
Yeah, currently what we are doing is we're doing an aerial survey topo of the area to understand the changes that have occurred in the creek, so that we can then design, do a better design of our embankment that would collect potential water now that may not have been flowing in that direction, but because of this, the change in what the creek has done, we may see more water come to that area, specifically that northwest corner that was damaged there. So we wanted to get a better understanding of the surrounding areas. We have spoke with a contractor grading contractor, and he has provided a quote for us to perform the work once we have that aerial performed and can do a little engineering work
Okay,
on
good,
that. So
good. Thanks.
yeah.
Vice President Bowman?
No, nothing from me, thank you.
Okay. Could we go back to the beginning of the report? Scroll back to the start. If we could now start scrolling through, there were a couple of things that came to mind while we were going through the report, and I wanted to save my questions and comments. So with regards, now that we're taking water deliveries, or Coachella Valley Water District is taking delivery at their main facility, recharge facility, are we also able to restart deliveries of water at Mission Springs?
So we will not be delivering any more water to Mission Creek. We have currently for the year, it's been just over 5,000 acre feet of water. And because of the over delivered to that basin, we have our numbers, we're hoping to try to bring that over delivery down based on, we're expecting around a 300,000 acre feet of delivery this year to the Coachella Valley, but because of the storm and that the delays that have now occurred, that's not going to happen. So the amount that we have delivered to Mission Creek, it satisfies what we would like to remain as far as the over of deliveries to that basin. We're trying not to extend that any further than what it currently is, which is around, I believe it was around 16,000 acre feet of water, with 9,000 that should have gone over to the Whitewater Basin.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
If we could continue scrolling, please. So these, could we go back? Thank you. So these hiring events, do we know what kind of people we're trying to attract, or what types of jobs we're trying to fill?
Correct, yeah. We, looking at accounting, engineering, the people who might be interested in construction or operations, a whole gamut of that, who aren't aware of what the agency can provide as far as a career. I know most people, they get their water and they don't understand the behind the scenes of what's involved with a water district. We have seen some turnover in construction, so we're trying to get recruitment on that side. And we're also just trying to generate excitement for, it's very difficult to hire more technical staff in the Valley, specifically engineering and in more advanced accounting, IT individuals. So that's what we're trying to educate as far as what type of positions that you might be able to find at a agency.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, when we were on the tour last week with Councilmember DeHart, that was something I think that impressed him, was the length of tenure of the people that, at least the people that he was meeting. So these hiring events, is this something that it's a relatively new thing that we've been involved in?
Yeah. I don't recall that. She may have attended some events in the past. There was a time where we had some retirement people, and we were trying to fill some of those gaps. But as far as these current events, I do not know if she has attended these in the past or not.
So we don't really know what sort of the track record of how successful or not.
No, I can tell you that my experience, David Tate and I, right before COVID, we attended an event actually at Cal Poly Pomona. It was a hiring event, and we generated several interviews based on that. So that was very successful on getting engineers. I will talk with Chris when she comes back to track the people who may submit applications based on their visits with her.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. If we could keep scrolling, please. Think further, please. No, I think I've covered everything. Just want to make sure. All right, so with that, we can move to item 8, director's reports on meetings and events attended on behalf of the agency. If each board member could report back any meetings since our last meeting 2 weeks ago, our last board meeting that they've recently attended on behalf of the agency, and please state the date and the event. And we'll start with Director Gracia.
So we go back to the 19th, was our last meeting, I believe. So since then, I've had two engagements. One was the training on the 25th, the Internet Agency Security Training, and one meeting of the Coachella Valley Water District. And believe it or not, much of what was discussed at that meeting has been discussed here. Assistant General Manager Johnson played that video, and there was more detail given on the work that they were doing. They had multiple items on their agenda, which I thought was interesting, so I brought it with me. The work that they're having to do due to the storm damage, you know, they're a storm water agency as well as a water agency, and they're responsible for a lot of the issues that go on with routing stormwater throughout the valley. And one of the things that they're going to have 15,000 trucks of loads of sand. That's the big trucks with a set of doubles that empty from the biggest sand moving, 15,000 of them, to begin to disperse that buildup that came down through Mission Creek and ended up going out throughout the valley. I don't know if anybody's interested, but it's an interesting. They also talked about President Powell being interviewed for. There's a set of, I think, 5 installments on KSQ, be discussing water issues, storm-related issues, and it sounded like 5 segments that will be focused on CVWD, look like, but that'll be airing on KESQ. Their first installment, I think, was yesterday that it aired, might have been the day before, and that was focused on the stormwater. And there were some statistics that were mentioned in there that have been talked about here. The fascinating 1,000-year event up in Mission Creek that caused all this damage. And you know, when you look at the landscape and the topography, that's how all this was created and continues to change. And we need to be aware that just because things are calm weather-wise for 100 years and we think everything's going to be the way it is, all you have to do is look at Mother Nature, and we don't really get to decide anything when you compare it to the power of rushing water. But with that, that is it for.
Okay, thank you. Director Bloomer.
The event I attended, the Palm Springs Business Expo and Taste of Palm Springs on Wednesday, September 20th, and Desert Water Agency had a booth and was providing everyone with our canned water. So it was really well attended, and I think they gave out all the water. So it was a success. And that is it.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
I did not attend any events for which I am seeking compensation. I did attend Desert Hot Springs City Council to speak on an agenda item in my personal capacity. Same day as we met last time, but other than that, nothing.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Bowman?
Yes, on the 25th, we had a principals meeting on the Agua Caliente lawsuit. And then on the 26th, I attended the Agua Caliente Water Board meeting held at their headquarters. Interesting, they have 3 monitoring wells that have been dug over by their Cathedral City Casino. They're shallow wells to monitor the water quality, and of course, that I think they go down only 250 feet. And as a result, they did find some contaminants at that level. They were expecting that actually because there was prior businesses in that area. But anyway, very interesting board meeting.
Okay, thank you. So I attended several meetings since our last board meeting. On the 20th, on Wednesday the 20th, as has been previously mentioned, Vice President Bowen and I did meet with the executive team from Mission Springs Water District to talk about what they, to ascertain whether they were interested in doing a joint ad hoc committee, which they were. That was not a compensable event, but a meeting nonetheless. Then on the the 22nd, I attended the Aqua Region 5 event, which was hosted by the Alameda County Water District, which is a little bit confusing since it really only covers 3 cities in Alameda County: Fremont, Newark, and I'm forgetting the last one. It was a Union City, Fremont, and Newark, and also known as, I guess, as the Tri-Cities. Very interesting day. It was the title was called Integrated Resources Planning, Surprises and Lessons Learned, and they are a member. They receive water from the State Water Project, and that's about 40% of their water source, 20% from Hetch Hetchy, and then another 40% from the Alameda Creek watershed, which we also learned was quite extensive. For those of you that know that part of the Bay Area, going from Mount Diablo and quite far south. We started at what is their essentially their recharge facility, which is a series of ponds and lakes that start near that watershed. They take that water and divert it, some of the watershed or some of the water from the creek. But as part of that, they also had to build, which is, I suppose, what we were told is the largest, I should say, the most sophisticated fish ladder in the United States, if not the world. And they put that into use starting this past year. There are several fish that need access to their spawning areas that are beyond those settlement ponds, and so they use inflatable dams to divert the water on occasion, and also at the same time give the fish the ability to continue on their way. It was quite fascinating, very sophisticated. They have electronic monitoring so that they can see how many fish are passing through there. They're able to pick up fish that are tagged and understand, that have been tagged for future studies. They can supply that data back to the research teams that are working on that. It was very impressive. And then that water eventually makes its way down into what's called Quarry Lakes, which is a regional park, the East Bay Regional Park System. These were old quarries that are right near the south end of the bay that had been mined for gravel, I think primarily for a long time. Those are now owned by the Alameda County Water District, and that's part of their recharge program. But at the same time, it's quite a large park, which provides a huge recreational value to the people in the South Bay, including fishing. And then we were taken to their desalination plant, which is not a huge plant, but it's important to their protection of their aquifer. So as farming, that area was quite rich in farming, and also with, as I said, these quarries that were being operated. And what happened over time was there was saltwater intrusion into the aquifer. So this desal plant is actually pulling that water out and purifying it, and then putting it back, either putting it back into their own distribution system for the city of Newark, or being put back into the aquifer to push that salt water back out into the bay. So overall, it was a very fascinating day, things that I had not really thought about before because they may not be something that are directly involve us as far as a water agency. But the desal part was, I think, probably the most fascinating, particularly when we talk about perhaps, and again, this desal plant is really addressing brackish water. It's not taking seawater and turning it into potable water because that would be a whole other animal for them. It would be much more expensive than what they're doing today. But it's very important to them, and I've heard mention of our own aquifer. There might be areas where we encounter brackish water, not due to saltwater intrusion, but for other reasons, and this might be something further down the road for us to consider as a possible source of potable water. So, and finally, as was also mentioned, last Wednesday, the 27th, I attended the tour with Councilmember DeHart. I think he really did, as Assistant General Manager Johnson said, I think he really did appreciate the opportunity to learn more about what we do for the city of Palm Springs and also the West Valley in general. There's quite a bit of discussion as it related to our recycled water plant and their wastewater treatment plant, which I believe is probably beneficial to us, having a council member who understands a little bit better about what that relationship looks like. So I appreciated the opportunity to spend time with him. I look forward to, the rescheduled meeting with Mayor Garner and Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein for our other two council members who have adjoining or have overlapping constituencies, meaning Directors Gracia and Directors Bloomer. And I'd also would encourage our other two directors from the north side of the interstate to perhaps consider inviting some of the council members from Desert Hot Springs to take a similar tour. I think it's very beneficial to start building that relationship as well. And also that was not a compensable event, but one I thought that was very important to participate in. And with that, I'll end my comments, and we will now go to item number 9, which is director's comments and requests. Director Gracia.
As you know, the state is getting ready to issue their decision on chromium-6 standards. And it's interesting, the new general manager at Mission Springs issued a letter that I thought was well thought out, well reasoned, and I mostly support. There was one section in there what I would have probably bent his ear a little bit, but generally speaking, Brian Macy is one of the only people in the industry in California that has been successful in rooting out chromium-6 from the water supply. When he was at Indio, he instituted a system over there that cleared it out of 3 wells. It was not stannous chloride injection. And so I'm grateful that he's taken that step, and we should, all of us in Desert Hot Springs that drink that water and understand the complexities involved in getting treatment to the water system as fast as possible. There's some hope that things are on the right track, and I just don't think it's necessary to sacrifice 250 of our citizens to cancer. I think we can do it without.
Thank you.
And that's essentially what's been from this dais been proffered as a possible alternative to spending the money.
Thank you.
So I think we have that to
Director
remember.
Bloomer.
I don't have any comments or requests. Thank you.
Okay. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
No, I'll pass this week. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Vice President Bowman.
I appreciated the opportunity we had to meet with the President and Vice President of MSWD Board, and I want them to understand that some of the comments from this dais do not reflect the majority here. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further comments. So with that, we can close the public part of our meeting and proceed to closed session. I have 9:20, so if we could meet in the conference room at 9:30. Thank you. Welcome back to public session portion of our meeting today. We do have, I think, some action to take.
Mr. President, after conference with legal counsel on the item 10C, conference with legal counsel, possible intervention in existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9. I would like to make a motion that this Desert Water Agency instruct legal counsel to enter into this case and do all things necessary to defend it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Assistant Secretary Baca, we have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Director
That cover
Bloomer.
it?
May we take a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mr. President, just so I
Yes.
can clarify, the agenda says that's two cases, it's actually only one. so
Right.
that's what
Yes.
you're-
Yeah.
And what we were just authorized to do, so it's clear in the record, would be to file a motion to intervene.
That's
in the
correct.
Edison case.
Yes. Thank you very much for the clarification. And with that, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.